smooth operator.
Clean game today. Taylor sets up the screen, near side. Lindsay with blockers ahead of him, to the 5, looking for the end zone, and he's got the touchdown. Mayfield over the middle, hit his man, the ball is loose and picked up by the Texans. Christian Kirksey with the ball, let's see if they rule that a completion. And Mayfield over the middle, and it's intercepted. Picked off in midfield by Justin Reed. Reed left, pulls it down, on the move, gonna get the first down, and more. Quick slant, touchdown, Houston. Brandon Cooks.
And welcome to another episode of the Turn Up For What podcast, talking your Houston Texans straight from the Great British Isles. And we're at episode 98 in a rather strange week too, a lot to talk about, but joined by a good friend of mine, James from Texans Unfiltered. James, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm all right, yeah, not too bad. I think it was I thought Sunday was a strange game in many ways because this, for the first in a long time, feels like a team you can really root for. I find it easier to be proud of guys who are overachieving rather than underachieving. And the same goes with the coaching staff. But there's a lot to unpack. But just what was your general kind of thoughts on Sunday as the game sort of slipped away, I suppose, in the second half? What did you make of it?
I think the Texans would have won had Tyrod Taylor stayed in the game. I think from a coaching perspective, they definitely played, honestly better than I think everybody expected. To be honest, I don't know that anybody expected this team to come in and compete the way that they did. And it was from the jump, right? I mean, yeah, they had the muff punt by Andre Roberts, but I mean, the defense on the initial drive was 3 and out. It was a breath of fresh air because these are the types of games that we would normally, under a Bill O'Brien coach team, that would have gotten away extremely quick. And that wasn't the case. It's just been a pleasant surprise watching this team play, if I'm being fully transparent. Yeah,
and I suppose the sort of preseason predictions, or the kind of probably the best hope you could have, was that this team would be gutsy, be scrappy, would stay in games, would find ways to stick with other teams that are probably, in all probability more talented than you on paper. But I think it's refreshing in the sense that, there's guys playing above their level. But I think at the same time, there's also, on the flip side of that, it makes you just think back to the 2018 team, even the 2019 team, and just think they just grossly underachieved, predominantly due to coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look back at it, like the talent was there at a much higher level than what it is now. And these guys are playing above their pay grade. All those 1 to 2 year vets that were signed, I was on a bunch of Browns podcasts last week, and one of them was like, look, these aren't just scrubs. They're guys who have had some success in this league. And whether it be schematically or coaching or just not in the position to succeed, now that they're in a position where they are succeeding and they're playing above expectations. And I think that's a fair way to look at it. All these guys are playing for their next contract, and they all want to play for Culley, which I don't know if we had that last year or the years prior with Bill O'Brien. I don't know if people really wanted to play for Bill O'Brien. I think they probably wanted to play for Deshaun, if anything.
Yeah, I liked when Culley came out, and it was the play that Auclair got. I think he must have got poked in the eye by Clowney, whether that was intentional or not, I don't know. I would always defend him in the past when he's been other places, but he seemed to go to the ground with Auclair, and I think Culley was coming over basically to speak to Pharaoh Brown because he keeps continually getting into it with people after the play's been blown dead. And I think he was less effectual than he'd been the week prior against Jacksonville. So I don't know if the shoulder and the other ailment that he was carrying affected him. But I liked when Culley came out and got into it a bit with some of the guys up front. And particularly because Mills was on the field at the time. And he made a complete fuck up of that call. And I was losing my mind at the time. I don't know why he didn't accept the penalty. But I think the humility that he showed and the almost refreshing answer of, I got it wrong. And it was great to see. And you can see him doing that, why people have gravitated to him, and he's elevating guys around him, and he's getting a far more positive and cultural spirit than you would have had otherwise. And I'm not really a big one for that, but I think when you start to see the results of it and you see we're almost at the opposite where we'd been, I think, as you said, if Tyrod had been there, we might have, be talking a very different team right now. But yeah, I like the way Cully answered that question. And he's grown on me. I wasn't a big fan of the hire, but I can see Caserio's vision a little bit more every week, I think, sometimes with Cully.
Yeah, I think everybody was wrong about Coley. If we're just going to be like honest, right?
Yeah,
I was wrong. I think everybody was wrong about the head coaching, right? Is he the permanent guy? Is he the guy that's going to lead us to the championship? Honestly, I don't know, but I know that he's the guy for where we're at currently to kind of guide us through this period that we're in, right? This rebuild, this players coach that all the players want to. I mean, you could just see it. It's not even just like on the field. Like you could see it when they talk about him. Sure, they give you the player speak, right, where they talk highly about him and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But it's their body language and tone when they're talking. It doesn't come out forced. It's like they actually genuinely want to play for this man. And I think with where the franchise is at, I don't know if you want another type of coach.
Yeah, I think he's the right kind of personality to steer. And he said that I'm the guy for right now. And I thought it was interesting. The amount of players that came out and said, look, we'll be fine. We've got a special bond in this, locker room. And they're bringing that unprompted. So it's positive to see, I think, because if you think of all the mudslinging, of all the shit that's gone on in the off season with number 4 and all that kind of stuff, it kind of felt like, it was coming together a bit again. And obviously, we'll see on Thursday night if people kind of are revived or are a bit more enthusiastic, because week 1 was the terraces were sparse. I think in terms of season, look, it takes, even in the good days, it takes a long time to fill up. But the primetime game is probably a good sort of barometer of where people are and how because they've got plenty of time to get there. And it'll be interesting to see what the crowd's like. Whether the team can perform in the absence of Tyrod is probably a different question altogether. But I thought very interesting just to see. It feels like a bit of a restoration of the fan base and a restoration of the club as a whole, I think, because it's been broken for a long time now.
Yeah, I mean, I think, this Thursday is going to be an interesting matchup in the sense of rookie quarterback, third-round quarterback. Going against the number 1 defense in the NFL on prime time. Like, I really wonder if these storylines are manufactured by the NFL, right? Like, I don't know why conspiracy hat, like, theorists came into my mind, but, I mean, could you write a better storyline than Texans looking good through 2 weeks, lost their top 5 quarterback in the offseason, doesn't want to play for you. The pick of Davis Mills in the 3rd round, he's now going to go up against the best NFL defense in the league right now in prime time. You just have to wonder, if these stories are made up, because if Davis Mills, and I'm not saying he is, and I know you don't believe he is, but what if he lights the Panthers on fire, and that becomes the narrative, and all of a sudden everything changes? It's like, I don't know. Like, we see these things time and time again in the NFL, stories very similar to this, to where it's like, you have to wonder if there's 12 old white guys at a round table discussing what should the storylines look like this year. and I don't know.
Yeah,
really weird.
It can all change. I mean, like I just said, I think it's positive. I think people have come together, but I mean, that can flip very, very quickly with wins and losses. So where this team will be in terms of, public sentiment by the end of Thursday night, I think is, really up for debate. I watched a little bit of the Panthers defense. I'm going to get into it today and tomorrow just for an article prior to the game. But yeah, there's definitely there's definitely a ferocity about that front. And I think the coordinator, Snow, who's been predominantly a college guy, and actually wasn't really that familiar with him until I saw Lance Sirlein put out a tweet just about, all the places he's been, and he's been with the head coach there. And it looks like, he dials up a lot of blitzes. And that was one of the things that I picked out in the second half with Mills was second level pressure, the run that got blown up before the interception. and then the one where Grant Delpit leveled him. He just didn't see it. And there was a hot route there. Burkhead's flailing his arms in the air within frustration that he's not seen him on the hot. And, I think they're going to throw the kitchen sink at him in terms of blitzes. And for all rookie quarterbacks, that's difficult. And if you look at the stretch we've got as well, we've got Carolina, then we go up to Buffalo, who looked decent and put literally put 2 on a stretcher. Then we've got the Patriots and Belichick smug like a Cheshire cat on the other side, what he did to Zach Wilson. And then we've got to travel up to the Colts. So, he's going to have no hiding places. So it's almost, and I think in some ways, James, I think it's better we get this look now and we can revert back to Tyrod, because if it's absolutely 4 drubbins, then we can kind of say, well, look, the kid's not ready. We'll see where he is next preseason. Let's put him in, maybe bring somebody else in. But I think I'd rather have this now than maybe, let the season fade out and then he plays when guys are dogging it. So there's going to be no hiding places for Davis Mills. And I think they're going to throw everything at him blitz-wise. And they've got some good edge rushers to get him behind our line.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think, a couple of things there. I do think that the Panthers defense and the way that they, scheme their blitzes and things of that nature, with Brian Burns and just all the players that they have on the defensive front, it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be something that we didn't see last week. A ton of, the offensive line through 2 games, though, it has been a lot better than I think anybody anticipated. So it's going to be interesting to see if Mills is able to, pick up on those blitzes and adjust the protection to, be able to somewhat slow down the blitz and slow down the rush. But that's a lot. You're expecting a lot from a 3rd-round rookie that is going to have 2 to 3 days of first-team reps for the first time this season. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. I agree with you. This 4-game stretch, look, whether we were going to make the playoffs or not make the playoffs with Tyrod, I think there's an argument to be made that with the schedule we have, there was a good chance that if Tyrod continued to play at the level he was playing at, we should have been able to at least make a wild card or win our division, in my opinion. I don't think that's a stretch based on what we've seen in 6 quarters. Would you agree?
In terms of an offense, I suppose the injuries piled up, didn't they, on Sunday? So if you think we only carried 5 wide receivers, and that caught us out after 6 quarters. So there's a lot of variables, but I think on his trajectory that he was playing at was probably the best you could have hoped for. But also his history, has tended to get injuries at the worst time, and it's hit him again. And you feel sorry for the guy because a hell of a leader doing a good job out there. So yeah, I think there was a chance. Yeah, I think possibly.
And I guess that's what I'm saying. Ultimately, there was a chance. Now, through these 4 weeks, there's probably not a chance, right? The playoffs are pretty much gone, right? Who knows? The division's pretty bad in general. I know the Titans had a big win against the Seahawks. The Colts look bad. The Jags look bad. So who really knows? But it used to be like that year that the Panthers made the playoffs and they were like 7-6 or something like that, or 7-7-1. They had a tie. Who knows? Anything can happen. But I agree with your premise that let's see what Davis Mills has. I'd rather him go against the best competition and us really have an understanding of what he potentially is, compared to being fooled by going against the Jags or the Jets or whatever bad teams may be on the roster. On the schedule, for us to really have an understanding of, what he is as a quarterback. Can he build? Can he develop? Is he going to get better each week? Things of that nature. The Panthers defense is a great test. The Bills defense is a great test. We all know Belichick against rookie quarterbacks. I think he has the best record in the history of the NFL against rookie quarterbacks. So those first 3 games are going to be very telling. We'll understand if there's something to build on or if this is just another 3rd-round rookie. And, it'll be fun, hopefully. I think him coming in the second half against the Browns was somewhat deflating for fans because you went into it thinking we have a chance at winning this game, and then Davis Mills comes in, and for a fact at that point, he's not going to light it on fire. He had no preparation. We're going to lose that game, and I think that's what made that game so hard for the second half was the fact that the expectation was you could potentially win this game. You should win this game based on the first half, and then it went away. So now we'll be able to see at least what it looks like for a full game.
Yeah, and I suppose there was a couple of plays, wasn't there? There was the long ball to Brandon Cooks, which he just left out to the right. When I watched it from the all-22 end zone view today, it just didn't seem logical why he would have done that. I think with the interception to Andre Roberts, I mean, obviously Roberts, I tweeted out at the time, Mills' interception intended for Roberts. We got here quick, but that goes back to the 5 wide receiver issue. So, Anthony Miller is going to have to be, a big factor on Thursday night for us if this offense is going to move the chains consistently. And, he's going to have no hiding places, and he's a guy that's in the spotlight for a second contract that Chicago deemed he wasn't worth. But I think when you saw those two plays, it could have easily gone right. If he just had laid it out in front of them. There was a third down play where he threw it into Jordan Aikens, he dropped it, and actually, when you saw it for the all-22, he should have caught it. So, there was adversity they overcame. There was what did you think actually of that Jordan Aikens spinning the ball on their sideline? I know he looks at them and he does say something, but Christ, what can you not flag? If you're going to make a big third down call, you've not caught a ball all season. That was his first pass he caught. You got to let guys celebrate a little. I know that's it's a point of emphasis, but still, I think you got to let that one go. Surely.
That was for me that was a great ball, a great catch, like the placement, right, and the adjustment that Aikens had to make. That was just a good play overall. I don't know, dude. This whole no celebration thing it's just taking the fun out of the league. Yeah. Sure, the league's still going to be watched and things of that nature, but to throw the ball down and have a little spin on it and get penalized for it, that's crazy. What do you want these guys to do? They can't have any fun whatsoever?
Well, the thing for me is if he'd done it on the other sideline, there's no flag. He does it on our side. It does it on the opposite sideline of the pitch, would it count if he was at the other side of it, if he was closer to the hash marks? So I don't know. But I think the point I was making there was, before we digress, was just that there was a couple of plays there that could have fallen in line and could have given us some more momentum. And if he gets that one to Brandon Cooks deep, it's a big momentum shifter. A deep ball like that, because it just guts a defense. They change their play calling after that. They'll get a little bit deeper. But I think for me, and I put out a clip earlier on just about a blown up run play in the red zone. But I think what the Texans need to be able to do is actually run the ball better, because actually our pass protection so far has been okay, but it's hard yards and we're relying on Mark Ingram bouncing off guys to get that extra 2 or 3 yards. And that's great. But you can't live every down that way. And I think that the issue I picked up on that film was a very basic clip. It was set up perfectly to go and run one up in the end zone there before the slant to Cooks later on. But the linemen aren't getting to the second level. And I think for me, when you watch the line block and just you take that play, but if you watch all the 22 for the first 2 games of the season, we moved Titus Howard to left guard to allow us to run the ball in theory. But actually, it's the other side of the line that's doing a bit more damage for us. And actually, there's an argument to be made, first 2 weeks, Titus Howard's the weakest link in this line. And they're not running the ball well. Him and Tunsil continues to dog it in the run game. Not interest, genuine disinterest in the run game. You can't fault him in pass protection, but if this team is to rally around Davis Mills in the next 4 weeks, those guys are going to have to go and kick some tail up front, and that includes getting to the second level and safeties and linebackers and moving them out the way, because that's the difference between a 10, 15-yard run to a 30, 35-yard run, and that's the way you're going to have to live with a young guy back there.
I agree. I think that the second level blocking from the offensive line in general just hasn't really been there. Titus and Tunsil do look disinterested. They look as if they did their job at the first level and it's over. Yeah. Instead of just really fighting to keep those yards alive. And you have to wonder, if that's the case, I would assume the way that Coley coaches and the way that the players respond, there has to be a conversation this week. But for Davis Mills to have any success, they can't expect 2 to 3 yard gains every time and setting up Davis Mills for the best position to succeed. It's just not the way this is going to work. He's going to need to heavily rely on that run game. I'll tell you this, the one thing that I have been surprised about, and I don't know if this is why David Johnson was kept on the roster, because he's not running the ball well, was David Johnson's pass protection. He might be the best pass protector on our team.
No doubt. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
I think he hit Myles Garrett on a chip almost every play.
Yeah, I heard Matt Weston talk about this yesterday, and I said that to my buddy at the time we were watching the game. I said, why, and again, it goes back to the Tunsil point, you don't want to go over, old yards, but, the whole point is when you draft a guy like Tunsil, you don't need somebody to chip, and he's out there chipping. Surely if he's going to be chipping, he should be on the other side of the line and help out Cannon or Heck or whoever's going to be in there. But Cannon played all the snaps this week, and I think that solidified the line a bit better because that was the best pass protection considering the talent for a long time. You're going back to Dwayne Brown, Chris Myers days when it was genuinely the quarterback had plenty of time to throw. So I think from that side it was positive, but they will have to improve in their run fits because they're just not getting to the second level and clearing space out. Because when you saw on the opposite side of the ball how easily the Browns cleared us out multiple times. And look, there isn't many better guards in the run game than Wyatt Teller, but I think they continually cleaned us up time on time. And if you watch that final Chubb run into the end zone, the B gap is there must be about 7 meters wide space,
at least.
And it's just it was embarrassing towards the end, and I think we just faded. And they'll do that to teams, but I think going back to that point you made earlier, would we continue to have a chance to be a competitive side and maybe sneak 6-7 wins? With Tyrod. And my consideration, James, is I think right now, watching the all 22s back quite carefully the last couple of weeks, I think the turnovers are covering the cracks on this defense. And look, that was always going to be the case in terms of the talent. But I think we're getting away with a lot more because of those turnovers, because the run fits and that second tier unit they're bringing in up front of the front four can't defend the run. Jordan Jenkins can't set the edge. Jacob Martin had a terrible game in terms of the run defense. I know people are critical of him, but yeah, I think that the defense is kind of getting away with it a little bit. I think because some of the basic concepts to get open in zone. There was one where they motioned the tight end over to the opposite side. Vern Hargreaves keeps backing off because he's so scared to get caught in behind, and then they just flood the same zone with the two players, and then Baker just picked it every time, and it was easy pickings. And he is okay at that, but I think there was definitely there's definitely a lot being covered up by these turnovers because you can't rely on them every week.
I would agree. I think I didn't expect them to stop the run offense for the Browns. I think it's a tall task no matter who you're playing. I mean, they basically have two of the same exact running backs, except Kareem Hunt might have a little bit more juice than Nick Chubb is on the speed side, but they're both power runners that thrive off of contact and just continue. The good thing is this matchup this week won't be anything like that. It's going to be more of a finesse runner in Christian McCaffrey and things of that nature. But I agree. I mean, when you look at the defensive line, they're not. They just aren't sticking. It's like it's almost as if it's not like they're missing their assignments, but they're just not playing their assignments well enough. Like you see on the outside, they're over pursuing quite a bit, opening up lanes. Jacob Martin is just not very good at setting the edge. Pass rusher, fine, something that he needs to be doing, but setting that Whitney's not good at setting the edge. Like we really don't have a guy on the outside that's good at setting the edge in general. Malik Collins has been probably our best defensive lineman, but still hasn't been great in eating up the run. And Blacklock, he might have had. I don't know if he had a great game at all, to be honest with you. I mean, there was some pressure maybe, but he did not play a great game compared to what we saw in the Jags game, right?
Yeah. No, why do you think Jacob Martin always gets sacks early? Because he seems to do that, and then you don't see him. He doesn't kind of flash up again. I don't know if he just catches people with his speed off guard, but yeah, I've noticed that. If you think, last year at the Colts, he got an early sack. He did it against New England in his first year. Early big plays in the game, and then kind of disappears a little.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I haven't really even thought about that. You're right. I mean, every single time that something's happened with Jacob, if it's been a play made, it's been extremely early.
Yeah.
Maybe it gets gassed. Maybe after that first sack, there's adjustments made. I don't know. I mean, we know he's not strong. We know his game is based on speed and get off. That's his entire. That's what helps. That's what makes him who he is. Yeah, I don't know. That's a great point.
Yeah, and we missed Vincent Taylor. And I didn't think we'd say that. He was one of the guys that surprised me the most. Another guy that surprised me, DeMarcus Walker, wasn't playing. And I thought Jaleel Johnson obviously just signed off the Saints practice squad, but he had a terrible game. He will not want to watch that tape back too much. So I think the guys up front got kicked around. And I think Charles Omeni has been a big disappointment so far, I think, in terms of that unit. I think overall as a defense, I think it's holding just. But they'll have a good test this week, and I think, as you said, there'll be no hiding places in the next couple of weeks in terms of the run game. But yeah, there's just been, I think, that the talent's probably going to get exposed, and it will get exposed as people get banged up, and the season goes on, and guys pick up next year and there. But yeah, I think the in the pass coverage and the run defense, which wasn't tested week one really, started to show a lot of cracks. It's going to break open from time to time, and I think we're just going to have to be aware that's a distinct possibility.
Well, I also think that the Browns' offensive line doesn't really get enough credit, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think that offensive line is probably top 5 in the league. Especially coming from where they were in 2019. I mean, they would get destroyed by everybody. Baker was running for his life. Now they have a bunch of dogs at every single position, it seems. And I mean, they definitely. You have to think, like, when you go up against a matchup like the Browns' offensive line, which I'm trying to think of what other team we may be playing where that'll happen. I mean, the Panthers' offensive line is
Patriots can run the ball. I think they look like they can run the ball big time this first 2 games.
Patriots can run the ball, but like outside of that, like I think that'll probably be the best offensive line that we've actually seen. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out. I don't know if we'll see another matchup like we did against the Browns.
Yeah, and you think how inexpensively they've assembled that as well. If you think Wyatt Teller was a late round pick from Buffalo, the left tackle is a second year player at a big school, first round, you go and get him. And probably the weak links, Jan Coughlin, and he was the guy who was obviously everybody's familiar with Tennessee. It came over on a decent contract, free agent wise. So yeah, I think you're probably right, James. It's probably top 3, I would think, and what they're really good at what they do. But I think it just gives people a barometer of where the talent is, and there shouldn't be a shock. But yeah, it just crumbled, I think, and then that screen pass to the kid at UCLA was just that was probably the worst one, because I mean there was probably 6 missed tackles on that, and I think just the pounding of the run game tired the defense out, I suppose, and kind of got us to. Got us to a position where we're not necessarily there. But I think overall though you can take positives, because if you think it was a 10-point differential on the scoreboard at the end of the game, we pretty much handed them those 10 points, with interception and the muff punt return. So I think there's a lot there to take from the game.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I as a fan, right? For you, and this is my question. Is this team better than what you thought they would be?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think I managed my own expectations to the point where I had 0. And I think I was, I probably said that on every show we did in the off season. Don't expect too much and let yourself be pleasantly surprised. And it's a far better place. I remember the 6 sack at halftime Jacksonville week 1 opener, and the week after that I was, genuinely distraught because I probably sort of pitched my expectations too high. And you probably learn from that a little bit as a fan to try and sort of guard yourself against the likely disappointment. There's 31 teams going to be disappointed at the end of the year. But yeah, no, they're in a much better place, I think. What's been your biggest surprise from this team so far?
I think it's Tim Kelly, to be honest with you. Did you expect this, Tim Kelly? Because even based on last year with the last, 12 games with Tim Kelly and Deshaun, I didn't see the creativity that we've seen so far. You have to wonder how much Pep Hamilton has influenced some of the things on the offensive side of the ball, right? But Tim Kelly's definitely been. I mean, he's called great games. Really, I don't know if I have any criticism for the way that the offense has been ran from a play calling perspective. Have we seen David Johnson up the A gap once this year?
Yeah, they ran a couple at halftime, right. But that was it, I think. Yeah.
But I mean, there just seems to be a lot more creativity in the run game, a lot more creativity in the passing game. That touchdown to Phillip Lindsay, I mean, that was just a beautifully designed play and a beautifully executed play, right? Tons of opportunities for there to be errors on the player side, but they were ready for it. So yeah, I think I think Tim Kelly would probably be the biggest surprise for me. What about you?
Yeah, you're probably right. I think in terms of, I think the defense is what it is. Because I think you can't really hide lack of talent on defense. You'll get away with it to a point, but somebody will break you open. Whereas offense is a lot more chess match, isn't it, against the defense? And I suppose a lot of it comes down to the quarterback, how he's been so far, Tyrod. And hopefully he comes back and gives us a boost if the wheels do come off in the next 4 games. But yeah, I mean, I took a still shot of that. You got double motion to the left. The whole defense goes to the left-hand side. They're right. And literally there was 2 linemen to block 1 DB, and he just ran it in. And it was, I don't think we're not used to layups. We're not, if you always remember in the Cougs days with the bootleg, and then the tight end was just standing in the middle of the field, 40 yards down, just catches it, standing still, and then just starts running with it. And I suppose in many ways, like our expectations have been managed so poorly by the previous coaching staff. And again, it goes back to that point. It really pisses you off because, how did people not see that this team was underachieving when, a lot of the intelligent, kind of commentators out there that work around this team, were very vocal about it. We were set up to go 8-8. Under O'Brien and that previous regime. But yeah, I think just the way Tim Kelly's kind of balanced thing, and I suppose it's probably the Mike Devlin factor as well, isn't it? Because he had a huge hand in the run game calls, preparation, technique, and as you said, look, it's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. And I think, if we can continue to improve our run game to complement the pass, then I think we'll be in an okay position. It just depends how much Davis Mills can process it at the line, I think, isn't it? I think that's going to be his kind of biggest jump, I think, for Mills. What do you think in terms of him being able to survive in these next 4 games? If he's serviceable, not lose you games, because he will throw interceptions, but I think he's just got to be smart at the line with what he calls and what he checks to.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know me enough to know, like, I'm more of an optimistic person when it comes to a lot of the things that happen with this team. I think I was probably the last one to hop off the Bill O'Brien train, right? And, I know that Davis Mills, there's tons of draft experts that thought that if he came out in 2022, he'd be one of the top quarterbacks taken. Some have said the first quarterback taken. Not a lot of college experience. But, the one thing I saw from Davis Mills that kind of keeps me coming back to hoping there's something there is, in the preseason, he tended, as things continued, he would get better. As the games continued, he got better. And that's really all I think you can look for in a developmental, rookie quarterback is, are they able to process and get better? Are they developing in any way? Or are they making the same exact mistakes? It seems like the first 2 or 3 series of the preseason, he would struggle, and then he'd get some completions going and he'd get in a rhythm, and he started to look like he could put it together. And you have to wonder if that could potentially be what he can do in, his first 4 games as a starter. I don't know. I like Davis Mills. I think, he's got the arm talent. He looks like he has the brains. I mean, that's one of the things that David Shaw always said, was that he's got the brains to process an NFL defense and be able to develop. And, we're going to see it this week. This will be the week where you really see if he's able to process, because he's going to have a lot of things thrown at him and he's going to have to adjust quick. And I don't expect the run game to be much this week at all. How many runs did he have in the first half? I think it was like 56% of the plays in the second half were runs, because they were trying to help Davis Mills out. They're just going to keep stacking the box because they're going to want to make Davis Mills throw. I hope that he can succeed. I think it would just be an awesome FU to 4, to be honest. I would love for him to just be like this top 5 quarterback. And, like I said, the story writes itself. I don't know if he's that. But if he could just be, average, which I think is really what you need right now. I think you need an average quarterback. I think you can get through this 4-game stretch, maybe win one. I think you can win 1 game with him. I do. I think there's 1 game that you can win with him if the scheme is right, if the play calling is right, if everything else works out. I think you can win a game. And I think if you do win a game, I do think it'll be this game against the Panthers. I don't think you're beating the Patriots. I don't think you're beating the Rams. I think you can maybe beat the Colts. Colts don't look like a team. Their defense has taken a massive step back compared to what we've seen from the Colts in the past. But if you can get a game here or there, that'd be great. I want to see him develop. I want to see, if he whatever mistake he makes in the Panthers game, I want to see those mistakes go away against the Rams. And whatever mistakes he makes in the Rams game, I want to see those mistakes go away against the Patriots and just see some steady progression, right? That's really all I'm looking for. I'm not looking for him to blow the roof off. I'm not expecting him to have a Deshaun type game against Tennessee where, he throws, 40, we score 47 points and it just goes crazy. Yeah. I just want to see some development.
Yeah, I think if he plays a clean game, and as he said, like there was the DB pressures, that's put on tape now. He didn't handle it, so people are going to keep bringing that. And if you watch the Buffalo tape, I only saw the highlights against Miami, but that was all DB pressures as well. So like coming up from the nickel. So, he'll have to show he can handle that, or people continue to do that. And then he'll have to be able to hit a deep ball at some point to keep the safeties honest, because if they just keep creeping up to the line of scrimmage, it's going to be 3 and out after 3 and out, I think. And then you're forcing him into a bad situation on third down, which he doesn't deserve. And he's going to throw his fair share of picks because he's shown at times when he's got to come out hot that he kind of throws a bit inaccurately. And I think that's the two things he's got to pick up on, isn't it? It's setting at the line and then knowing what the hot route is to take that pressure away. Because as soon as you hit somebody deep when they creep somebody up at the box from the second or third level, they're not going to do it again for a while because they know you can hit them. So he's going to have to he's going to have to fight. He's going to have to punch back against defensive coordinators. I think it's going to be a tough challenge the next 2 weeks. But look, I wish him all the best. And I think I hope he becomes something that it doesn't necessarily seem logically like he could be right now. But as you said, stranger things have happened, and people have just kind of got on a roll. And I think he has to get on a roll. He has to get some luck involved, and he's going to need everybody to rally around him and play their A game every week for him to have a chance. But
do you think there's a better team for Mills to be on right now? I mean, just the way, let me kind of tell you what I mean. So in the sense of the way the players are speaking, the positivity, the approach, just kind of the way that the team seems to be orchestrating itself from a culture perspective, which is a word that I think everybody's trying to destroy as much as they can right now.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's it's become the new versatility word, I guess. People hate culture.
Yeah.
But could you? I can't think of a better situation for Davis Mills to really step into. I think the players have each other's back. The players are supporting each other. They all know what they're here to do. And I just don't know if there's a better situation for Davis Mills to get it right now. Obviously, injuries to wide receivers and tight ends and things of that nature. But it just looks like this team is set up to support Davis.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I suppose it's a very different situation if he had to come in to say a team that had genuine playoff expectations and a playoff roster, and he's got to keep the ship afloat without, I think he threw less than 300 balls in college. Then it's not that's not a great situation for it to come into. But I think you probably think most teams that would be in that position probably, wouldn't be relying on a third round pick with such limited experience. But stranger things have happened. So yeah, I think it's a bit of a soft environment for him because expectations are low. If we lose these 4 games, there's an argument we might have lost all 4 anyway. So I think it's a bit of a soft opening for him to launch his pro career. But he'll be judged on this, and I think that's the thing. I think these next 4 games will tell us is probably a difference if he is a perennial backup, if he's a clipboard Jesus type of guy, or is he a guy who's probably got starters or starter aspirations for his career, and he can put the tape out there to show that he's capable of. And I hope he does, because I think he seems like a decent guy. And he's obviously been at a great program. Could have stayed an extra year, but he's here now. He's declared, and we'll see. We'll see where he goes. One thing I was actually going to say to you, James, I forgot in my notes here. Des King had the chance to go and light up Mayfield, and you and I probably share a sort of profound disdain for Baker. And surely as a DB, you would have just relished. You don't get a lot of chance to come up to the line and hit the quarterback. And I thought the hesitation was there. He was looking over his shoulder. There was no one there. And he walks in the end zone. He had a great chance to go and clean him out there and maybe hold him at 3.
Yeah, I was hoping on that play specifically that Baker was going to get unloaded on. I really thought that there was a good opportunity. Not only that, Desmond King's a pretty sure tackler. That's probably his big strength is, he's a hitter. at the quarterback position, but of course it didn't happen. I couldn't get any joy on Sunday, right? I couldn't see at least Baker get knocked down to the ground as hard as possible, which would have made this loss a lot easier to swallow.
Yeah. I think it just seemed like there just was a misplay. I think it was one of the sort of turning points, I think, up through the game, wasn't it? That just kind of didn't go your way, and then the second half just gradually faded out. A guy who wasn't there in the first quarter was Zach Cunningham. Do you think he missed the game against Tampa in the preseason, but then he was back at practice, on the Monday with a personal issue, a discipline issue this time. Do you think he's just one of these guys that isn't bought into this whole new era? It wasn't what he signed up for when he inked that deal. When you consider who his agency are, is he sort of creeping towards the exit in the same way probably Bradley Roby did for discipline reasons and MPDs and whatnot? Do you think he's in the watch list for potential moves? Not this season because they can't afford to do it with cap space, but his days may be stuck. Is it the beginning of the end for Zach, perhaps?
Well, the more it seems to be going on, it's almost like the story's writing itself. I mean, Coley comes out in the press conference and makes sure that people know why he didn't play in the first half. I mean, there definitely seems to be some sort of issue between the coaching staff and Zach Cunningham. But honestly, at the same time, like if you watch Zach play this year, he doesn't look any better than he looked last year in coverage. He looks more lost, to be honest with you. And he really isn't making much of an impact on the run game. Zach doesn't look like the guy that we wanted to sign the contract, like a contract extension. Like I remember you and me were both pretty high on Zach for the first 3 years that he was on this team. And we both thought that he had the potential to be something. Once he signed that contract, I don't know if I've seen that same Zach Cunningham.
Yeah, I suppose there's a question of how much the guys want it once they get paid, and they bank that signing bonus, and then do they not put in the hours that they used to do? But I think he had a great season in 2018 and then 19, and you wonder how much did Bernard McKinney make him look good. But then I suppose he's playing in a will spot right now on in a 3-man linebacker spot, and he doesn't look great at that either. And that was kind of he was the cleanup guy, and but he's not doing that. He seems to be getting blown up in the hole a lot when he comes down for run fits. As you said, his coverage ability's never been great. I remember it was at the 2018 opener, and I think New England abused him in the pass game. And he did bounce back from that, but he's not. Yeah, he's not a pro, and he's certainly not like a proficient in pass coverage. So I think when you look at that contract right now, it doesn't look good. To be paying him at $13.5 million APY or whatever it is, 14.5 in that region. He's certainly not playing like a player, of that, of a top sort of 10 linebacker. So yeah, I mean, if you could move on from him, I think I wouldn't necessarily be too upset about moving on from a linebacker who's not a standout. And I think Christian Kirksey was is probably our best linebacker right now. And that kind of tells you a lot, really.
That's what I was just about to say. I mean, Kirksey is all over the field. I mean, he's hands down the best linebacker we have. And this guy's been in the league for a long time. And the reason why the Browns moved on from him was because he didn't look like the same player after his injury. And now he looks like he's back to form. He's definitely the best linebacker on this team. He's making plays in the backfield constantly. Not the greatest in coverage, but definitely I would say probably our best in coverage. I don't really know what's going on with Zach. It sucks because the guy had a ton of potential. He's got the speed for the side to sideline speed that you would look for in a coverage linebacker, but maybe it's just all up in his head that I don't know what it is about coverage schemes. He just seems to be confused. He's always out of place. He's never where he needs to be. There were a couple plays in the Jags game where he could have made an impact and gotten in the path of the ball and just was on the wrong side of it. I don't know. I think this year, I don't think you could trade him this year. I think you'd eat too much of the cap. But
I think it's like 11 million dead hit or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I think next year is the year that you can trade him. But they haven't really worried about eating cap at all so far this year. So who knows? Yeah,
I mean, if you got a second or a third from, you'd probably take it, move on. So
yeah,
I don't think anybody needs to lose sleep over that. But I think his tape's there, so I don't think anybody be offering that based on the way he's played. So I suppose probably your best bet is he can rediscover that form slightly and find out where he is. But yeah, I think so. What do you think then in terms of the next sort of 4 weeks? If it is 4 weeks, because soft tissue injuries are very variable. They heal at very different rates. It could be 6-8 weeks. It's you can't. It's not like a broken bone. You can't scan it. I know you get MRI on it, but it's not conclusive by any stretch. So yeah, what do you think's a good outcome for this team? Do you think of the next 4 is 1 win success and 2 wins overachieving? Is that fair?
Over this next 4 weeks?
Yeah.
I think going 2-4 would probably be a success. Because for that to happen, that means Davis Mills played pretty well in at least 2 of those games. We're not going up against, well, I guess the only juggernaut offense we're going up against is the Rams. And, they had an off day on Sunday. They didn't look like they did in week 1, but that's a new quarterback getting used to new weapons. I do think that I picked the Rams to go to the Super Bowl for the NFC this year. I think Matthew Stafford's going to be a big difference maker for the Rams. And so I think, outside of the Rams offense, I don't really know if there's another offense that we really need to worry about. And I think that'll be enough to where, like, those turnovers, like you said, will hide some of the issues with the defense and put us in a position to succeed and win a game or 2 here. And if you can go 2-2 over the next 4 games, you're still in the playoff hunt, which I think is what they want. I know that a lot of people are, just lose as many games as possible and tank. I don't know where you lie on the tanking situation.
Yeah, I mean, you're never. I suppose if you think of the year, like Clowney was on the other side. Eye gouge aside, if it was an eye gouge, inconclusive. The post was in the way of the camera to get a full shot of it, right? But I think if you look at that draft, you take the number 1. He was the can't miss pick, and actually Aaron Donald was a better player. You could argue Khalil Mack's had a better, and they were all Khalil Mack was 5th or 6th. And Aaron Donald was in the teens. So, yeah, if you look at, and he's not filled his potential, but Derwin James was the best player in his draft, probably, arguably. Laramie Tunsil was arguably the best player in his draft class. J.J. Watt was definitely the best player in his draft class. So, none of them went top 5 for the majority of it. So, I think it's a lot of time it comes down to, and I'm a believer in fate, I think. And if you're in the right spot at the right time, like we were to get Watson, and it's never, as I said, I was on a Bills podcast in advance of next week last night, and I said, I expected 15 years at the guy, I got 4. So you never know. It all changes very much in a hurry. So yeah, I don't think there's any massive benefit of being 5th in the draft versus being 8th in the draft or being 12th, and I suppose I've watched more college football this year than I have done the last previous years. And there's no real clear consensus between, there's not a Trevor Lawrence where you can go, let's just take this guy and our fortune will be on a better path than it would be without him. But I don't think there's one of those guys, because the guy Matt Corral from Ole Miss seems to be the kind of sort of consensus, or he certainly, jumped up in the odds for the Heisman. But you've got a potential to say he's a 1-year wonder. And if you look at all the 1-year wonders that have come in the league this last few years, James, you look Joe Burrow struggling, Baker Mayfield, never really proved that there is a question whether you pay him or not. If you look at, multiple other guys that have come in the last few years, before, up to the 2017 class and all the subsequent classes out of that, I don't think there's a clear standout yet. It might be Trevor Lawrence. It might even be Mack at the Patriots, but there isn't a clear standout guy who's can't miss, so they don't come around very often. So, if you get a Derek Stingley at 6 and we get the first ever shutdown corner in our history, I'm all right with that, and if we win a couple of games and makes this season a bit more enjoyable, then yeah, so be it.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at. I also think that the Texan situation is a lot different. I talked about it last week, and I think it seems to be something that tends to be forgotten. But in a normal situation, tanking would somewhat be okay because, you're just bettering your chances at the top quarterback, right? That's really what it boils down to. But at the end of the day, the Texans are in a completely different situation than every other team that is in a rebuild. They have a top 5 asset that is likely to be moved next year, right? So in return, you're going to get 2 to 3 first-round picks, plus some later picks, potentially some players. So if that happens before the draft next year, and you finish, what would it be, 9-8, right? Is that the new record, right? 9-8, or let's say 7, 8-9, whatever it may be, and you're picking in the teens. Yeah, you're picking in the teens either way. you still have all those assets to be able to go and get whatever player you want. It really doesn't matter, So I guess that's why for me, I would rather than not try to tank and rather than be competitive and see if we can find a couple, players that we can extend that could be a part of what we're doing, because you have Deshaun Watson that is going to give you all the draft capital you need to be able to go and get that quarterback or the other players that are needed to round out this team. And that's my biggest thought is there's no reason to tank when you know for a fact you're going to get something back in return for Watson.
Yeah, and I think it goes for the rest of the squad as well. If anybody comes and offers any level of value at the trade deadline, and the next 7 or 8 weeks, I think they'll be gone. If the value's there, because I don't think they're tied to anyone. You saw that with Bradley Roby, and if it's Zach Cunningham, if it's Desmond King, if it's maybe Chuck. Well, yeah, I would drive him there myself. If you can get any value for any of these guys, I'd take it. Because the future is in not next year. It's probably beyond that, I think. And it's going to take a while people to get around that. But as I said, I would rather enjoy the games and see a valiant, plucky performance out of a team who are trying to give, something for that jersey rather than, the opposite of what we've probably seen in previous years. So yeah, it's going to be a tough couple of 4 weeks, but we're going to learn a hell of a lot about these guys. And I think, really for me, and it was terrible to see Justin Reid go down a number of times, because he's probably the only player on this squad right now who I would probably kind of say definitely has the talent, the makeup to be a future piece. But do you pay a safety when you're rebuilding, and do you pay a safety that continually get injured? And I keep going back to that. I think no. But he's probably the only player you think, yeah, he's probably a bit of a standout, And it was so shit for Nico Collins to get injured as well. Gets a 35-yard slant, and then he's out for 4 weeks with a shoulder. And it was just stuff like that. It was continual step backs, and you think like Gruger Hill flashes, but then he gets caught in coverage, and so it's just like it just felt like you got like a bit of success, and then it just you never necessarily saw it from. And I suppose as well that's the issue, isn't it? I suppose when you're sort of grinding these games out. If you were grinding these games out with younger guys, you could probably take a little bit more solace in defeat. But when you're grinding them out with vets that you might not be able to afford to pay, or does it make financial sense to pay, you kind of feel like, you just tread in water a little bit. And I have that floating in the back of my mind constantly.
Yeah, I think, with the young guys, they're going to have to learn a lot of the fundamentals and basics, and there's going to be a lot of learning throughout the entire season. I don't know if that's something I want to watch right now. I don't know if I don't know if I want to watch a 31-10 Browns game, because there's so many young guys on the defense that they're just not in a position to succeed. I get it, I understand it, but I think with where the Texans are going, I think that's the next step of the rebuild, and I think that's why next year is so important. When you look at the draft capital that we already have. Tons of 6th-round picks, right? We have tons of picks. We're going to have tons of picks next year. There's going to be more players moved by the trade deadline. We're going to have even more picks. And then you add, the Deshaun Watson package. That next year is going to be the year of the young. And I think this year it's more like, let's give the fans some entertaining football and see if we can find a couple guys that we can extend. And if we can't, then, we'll just kind of keep it moving. They're in a tough place. Like, I know not everybody was a big fan of Nick Caserio, but I really do think he put together a pretty competitive roster for what he had. I mean, I do think that his hand, I think when he signed on, one hand was tied behind his back with the cap and the lack of picks, right? So there's not much he can do. And then his second hand was tied behind his back when Deshaun Watson just decided he wasn't going to play. So I think Nick's done a pretty good job forming a roster that looks somewhat competitive. I think when he actually has some capital and some cap room to maneuver and make moves, I think we're poised to have a pretty decent rebuild pretty quickly. But at the end of the day, you got to hit on those picks, right? And if what he did in 2021 in the draft, with Nico and Brevin, Garrett Waller looks like he could potentially be at least, a depth piece. He didn't have a ton of picks to work with, and I love the Nico. I am a big Nico fan. I do think he's a part of the future in a very, very heavy way. The guy looks great.
You just want to see it on the field, don't you? And I think that's why it's so gut-wrenching.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You do, because you know that he has the talent.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you bring Jordan Vesey up this week because he was Mills' favourite target in the preseason. So I think he's worth, a handful of packages to give Mills an option that he's comfortable with. And it's good to see Roy Lopez out there as well, running with the ones. And he's not playing great. He's getting turned. His pad level's a bit high. He's facing the sideline too often, losing leverage, but he's learning. And I don't mind that. I just, when you see the inactives, and I think I'd much rather watch Jordan Jenkins I would rather watch Jonathan Greenard make the same mistakes that Jordan Jenkins is on the edge. Or Charles Amena, who still shows he can't set the run on the edge, and he has to be played. He has to be played inside exclusively. So I think we found that. So and then would you rather see Scotty Phillips run the ball 15 times than perhaps take some of the load off other guys? So because they're the ones that you can see benefit in the future. But we're going to learn a lot in the next few weeks. But the good news is I can now fly to America as of November, so I will be at a game. So I will see you at some point, mate, finally.
Hey!
So it came out yesterday. I'm still waiting to see the official guidelines for the CDC and all that kind of stuff. But we'll either be at a road game or at a home game. I'm not quite sure if we'll normally do both. But yeah, it was a bit... It's good to see that yesterday because it's shit watching it at home. I hate it. I think you can't beat a live event. I think that's what the pandemic's taught us. Whether it's theatre, music, or anything, it's 100 times better being there. So hopefully, we'll be out there at some point, mate. And I've got a long list I said that to Brandon Scott last time. I've got a long list of people that I need to buy a few drinks for all their time they're giving me on this. So hopefully we'll get over, but just waiting to see the details. And then it'll be some game in November. It might be the Jets if it's home, or if it's a road, it'll probably be Miami or Nashville. So we'll see what's kicking.
In November, the only game I'll be at will be. Actually, there's no game. I won't be at any. The only game at home in November is the
Jets.
I'll be at the Seahawks.
Right.
That's about it.
Right. I'll try and get something sorted because definitely want to get over anyway. So we'll wait and see what the details come out. But delighted to be able to actually go, I think, because it'll be a year on the sidelines is not great for anybody, I think, for fans and what have you. But hopefully we'll get that sorted out, mate. Thanks again for your time this week. Appreciate it. We're going to learn a lot in the next few weeks about Mr. Davis Mills, but at least we're put a good showing, I think, at least, and that's probably let's embrace it while it lasts, and we'll see where we get to as we head towards the draft. But James, thank you very much for your time, mate. Always appreciate it. Episode 98, and I wouldn't be able to do it with guys like yourself, so thank you for your time again, mate.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you.